Good evening, everyone. This is our third talk in our introductory talks on our Orthodox Christian faith. And this third talk is deification. Deification is an ancient theological word used to describe the process by which a Christian becomes more like God. And St. Peter speaks of this process when he writes, "As his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, you may be partakers of the divine nature." That's an extract of St. Peter's second letter, chapter 1, verse 4. And the question is, what does it mean to partake of the divine nature? And how do we experience it? To give an answer, let us first address what deification is not, and then describe what it is. What deification is not. When the Church calls us to the pursuit of godliness, to be more like God, this does not mean that the human being becomes divine. We do not become like God in his nature. That would only be a heresy, and it would be impossible, for we are human and always will be human, and we cannot become God. We cannot take on the nature of God. St. John of Damascus makes a remarkable observation. The word God, he says, in the scriptures refer not to the divine nature or essence, for they are unknowable. God refers rather to the divine energies, the power and grace of God that we can perceive in this world. The Greek word for God, theos, comes from a verb meaning to run, to see, or to burn. These are energy words, so to speak, not essence words. In John chapter 10, verse 34, Jesus, quoting Psalm 81, verse 6, repeats the passage, "You are gods." In fact, that he is speaking to a group of hypocritical religious leaders who were accusing him of blasphemy makes the meaning doubly clear. Jesus was not using the word God to refer to divine nature. We are gods in that we bear his image, and that comes from our being a creature of the Creator God. We were created in his image and likeness, not his nature. And so, what deification is? Deification means we are to become more like God through grace or divine energies. That is the essence of the process. It is an activity of the Creator God towards us, and that is an expression of his grace or help. In creation, humans were made in the image and likeness of God, Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, according to human nature. In other words, humanity by nature is an icon or image of the deity. The divine image is in all humanity. Through sin, however, this image and likeness of God has been marred and we fell from grace. When the Son of Man assumed our humanity in the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the process of our being renewed in God's image and likeness was begun. Thus, those who are joined to Christ through faith in holy baptism and chrismation, this process of recreation begins. Being renewed in God's image and likeness, we become, as St. Peter writes, partakers of the divine nature by this process of grace. Because of the incarnation of the Son of God, because of the fullness of God has inhabited human flesh, being joined to Christ means that it is again possible to experience deification, the fulfillment of our human destiny. The Western denominations, especially the Roman Church and Anglicanism, talk about sanctification, but this is a different thing. That is, through the union with Christ, we become by grace what God is by nature. We become children of God, as St. John says in Gospel chapter 1 verse 12. His deity interpenetrates our humanity. Historically, deification has often been illustrated by the example of a sword in the fire. A steel sword is thrust into the hot fire until the sword becomes a red glow. The energy of the fire interpenetrates the sword. The sword will never become fire, but it picks up the properties of fire. By application, the divine energies interpenetrate the human nature of Christ, and when we are joined to Christ, our humanity is interpenetrated with the energies of God. Through Christ's glorified flesh, nourished by the body and blood of Christ in the Eucharist, we partake of the grace of God, His strength, His righteousness, His love, and we are enabled to serve Him and to glorify Him. Thus, being human, we are being deified by that process of grace. And this process continues through our lives in our attendance at the Divine Liturgy and our partaking of the Holy Mysteries, and in receiving the holy gifts in this way, an expression of God's grace towards us, we become Christ bearers and partakers of the divine nature, and the intention of the Creator God in the beginning, when the Holy Trinity created us in His image and likeness, in spite of the fall and the image and likeness being spoiled, that divine image and likeness is in the process of being restored, and this restoration is called deification.